Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, and as always, I'm here with your host, Nicholas T. Smith, the author of Giants and the Smalls. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, go do that now. Find us and hit the alert button so you can know when we go live every single day. Then come and join us on Facebook, where we have a tribe of giants. It's a great place to find some support, some love, and encouragement on your own Giants journey. Nick, we're neck deep into the Sum Gigante groups as well. If you haven't joined a Sum Gigante course, your opportunity will come at some point. We've already started on round, and we're going to go through more and more. And so watch for those opportunities to come into a group coaching with Nick and I, and maybe Nicole as well. It's a great opportunity to find new friends as well, because I think, what is there in that group, Nick, this time?
No, there's 10 on this round. Yep.
And it's an amazing alumni that forms a bond together and grows. So watch for that. Watch for all the fun things that we do throughout the week as well, and comment, like, subscribe, because that helps. Sharing is caring. So do all those things if you feel inspired. Nick, will you introduce our guest today?
I will do that. I'd love to. One more quick announcement is the movie. We're going to do a press release here pretty soon. It's going to go broadcast through the UK and the US regarding the movies. So our petition is, if you know somebody in the movie industry that can help make that a reality, we're looking for a Pixar-style, Disney-style movie. And so that's a big request. Getting in the door with them has been somewhat of a challenge, but we believe that we can create this. So we're going to go after it. So
that's awesome.
If that works, I'm going to introduce Charra Post. I don't want to say Charra. We
just went over this.
Yeah, Nick, we just said this.
It's okay.
Yeah, so she is a registered dietitian health coach and has been practicing for 15 years. So she specializes in weight management, diabetes, and kidney disease. And so although her resume, so to speak, centers around disease management through nutrition, her focus tends to lean more towards mental health and how it affects literally everything. She finds that when we focus on positive mindset and overall self-care, managing everyday life, including diet, life flows much easier. Easier.
Easier.
Yeah. Did I write that?
Holy crap. No, I read that.
That was a Nick Smith original.
Nick So her newfound purpose, which has really been present all along, is to empower others to love and care for themselves so that they can lead a full, healthy, and joyful life. So we're glad to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
And you're back east. You're in New York.
Yes, upstate New York.
Somebody in the UK would probably say you're back west.
That's true.
Right?
I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah. Yeah, me either. Just now. That's my deep thought for the morning.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we are going to explore your journey, really,
okay.
And then from that, we're going to dive into your philosophies. But the whole purpose is to give different views of what it means to be a giant. And I think a lot of people get hung up on the idea that a giant is what you do. So they think of Kobe Bryant or somebody, and they think, oh, if I could be like that and do something like that, then I would be a giant. Well, that's not quite it. It's about what you're talking about. So
yeah, a giant is what you do. And I feel like a giant, being a giant is a process.
Yeah.
Right. We're all already giants, but we have to view ourselves as a giant.
Yeah. I get
just like your book.
I get the sense that's going to come out in your journey.
What were you doing? Yeah, what were you doing just before we came on the show? What were you saying? You were saying some I am statements, right?
So I'm nervous, right?
Oh, I
So
am. That's a great thing to be. I am.
yeah, so totally nervous. So to, build myself up, rather than allowing my mind to go down that rabbit hole of like, the what ifs, what if everything goes wrong? I'm saying I'm going to be awesome. I'm amazing. This is going to be a really great show, a great opportunity. And I was just speaking it out to the
Everything's going to be
universe or whoever's
easiler.
listening.
Easiler.
Easiler. Yeah.
Everything's
This is
going to be
much,
easiler now.
much easier than I thought.
I love it. And you guys are already helping me feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So
Well, if I can screw up words, we can't screw up this show.
I can say anything and it won't matter. So.
Well, I might even drop
we just take care of all the mistakes right off the bat. So
right off the bat.
It'll be easy.
Yep, there we go.
Well, let's dive into your journey. Let's go back in time. Tell us about childhood, about development, what it was like for you growing up, if that works. And
yeah, absolutely. I was really, really blessed in my childhood. I have the normal family that's not really normal anymore. Mom and dad, happily married, no big drama at home. But I was very, very sensitive and socially awkward and insecure, being a lot of social anxiety. And that was a really big deal for me, up through college and into, early adulthood.
Okay.
That a big, big struggle, just worrying about what other people think.
Yeah.
And it was as if I were my own worst enemy for, most of the early part of my life. And I still struggle with it. But I've really, throughout my journey, which I guess we'll get into a little bit more.
Yeah.
I've just come to love and accept myself and kind of embrace who I am. So that it's just much easier now to handle those social situations. It's just here I am.
Yeah. If we hang on to that. So if we hang on to that idea that you're socially not acceptable, that maybe you don't fit in, maybe you're insecure. I know a lot of people can relate with this.
Oh yeah.
And when you're in that, if you can remember back when you're in it, you don't know what to do about it. You're in it. It's who you are. You feel like maybe you're different and broken in some form, and you're trying to relate to society and you can't.
Yeah.
Can you
just kind of want to hide?
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about the hard part of that, if you would.
Oh, gosh. So, I mean, probably the hardest part was high school.
Yeah.
And Mean Girls. I think I still have some PTSD symptoms.
Yeah.
When I'm around high school girls, even as an adult, if I'm around high school girls, I'm like, whoa, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Because, girls are mean at that age. And even if they weren't being mean, I probably, in my own head, thought that I wasn't liked. Do you know what I mean? So there's some that was very real. Well, I guess all of it's very real to me, right?
Yeah.
And it's in your head. You can't argue with that too much, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. and hang on to this, because I think we're going to go down the rabbit hole here a little bit.
Okay.
So the unconscious part of you that says, where did that come from? There's this at a deep level, a deep unconscious level, there's a part of you that still has the emotional triggers of that time in your life are still present.
Yeah.
And so I would wonder around that, because this is common for, I think, many people, is that you have these underlying emotions that still rule in some form in your life. And you don't know they're there until you get put in an environment that triggers them. And then once that environment triggers them, they come up. This could be, stress. This could be, like you said, the high school Mean Girls. You get in that situation, it's been years, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, you're back in it.
Yeah.
So what would you share around that when people get into that space?
Well, I think the biggest thing is acknowledging it.
Okay.
Right. So kind of trying to figure out, okay, what in this situation is making me feel these emotions? And then if you can acknowledge it, and then you can kind of offer it some acceptance, right? And my coach told me that rather than fight it, you can offer yourself forgiveness for holding on to those emotions, right?
Yeah.
So I forgive myself for feeling this or for holding on to this.
Yeah.
And then you say that enough times, it gets a little bit easier and a little bit easier and a little bit easier.
Yeah.
You know, and the trigger that would normally, you know, cause me to just have a really rough day or a couple of days because I don't know what's going on and I'm just feeling anxious and I can acknowledge it, forgive myself for it, and move past it much faster.
Okay, so the word
I think that's
acknowledgement,
huge.
there's some etymology in that word. It's to not only know it, but to admit that you know it.
Right.
And so the acknowledgement is bringing it to the surface and saying, look, I know this thing is present and I'm okay because I know it's present. There's so much power in accepting that. There's not really much to do with it, because I think what we get hung up on is the idea that we've got to go back and process all the thoughts that tie to that emotion or that experience. So you have that trigger and it hits and those emotions come up, and then we think we've got to go in and analyze every single thought. The challenge is with 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day
when you look at
over
it like
time compounded, how do you even go back and resolve the thinking around that?
Oof. It takes time.
Yeah, I would imagine the acknowledgement and acceptance is going to be even more powerful than trying to figure out which thought created that.
And acknowledgement and allowing.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. What does that mean to you?
To me, it's that there's nothing wrong with me for feeling this way. And I don't have to stop it. I'm allowed to have these feelings and go through this process. Okay. And that takes kind of the pressure off to go, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? I shouldn't still be thinking about this. You know,
I'm thinking of 10 people right now that need this conversation right now that I need to tag. And I'm going to throw out names, and it's to keep, you know, just in integrity with our conversations. I'll tag them later. But
okay.
The beauty of this is that those underlying unconscious emotions that are present, and I love that we're diving down this a bit. They're just there. They're stored in the body. Peter Levine's work and Bessel van der Kolk's work on the body keeps the score and Waking the Tiger, and they talk about how the body stores trauma and neglect and all these emotions deeply throughout the entire body. And you don't even know they're there, and then snap, you get into a situation and they come up and you're like, holy crap.
Like, oh no. Yeah.
I've done this work for years and I should have seen that coming. And then there's no forgiveness or space or allowance for that.
I should be over that by now.
Yeah. And what would you share? So continue with that idea of forgiveness. Well, let me share one more thought and then I'll release it back over. So forgiveness, the best definition I've heard is to not cause additional harm.
Oh, I like that.
And so when that comes up, what we have a tendency to do is cause additional harm to ourselves. You're stupid. You shouldn't have done that. You know better. Like all this stuff that we say. So I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay. And I was just thinking along those lines, as giants, you know, we're often like up on a pedestal, right? You know, we're giants and we have everything figured out. We really don't. We're all a work in progress.
Right.
Or just like you said, it doesn't matter at which stage of the journey you're in, you know, these triggers will still come up even after you think that you've completely gotten over it. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. Like we're all human. We're all human and going through that. And I think the more that you can acknowledge those things and forgive yourself and let it go and not think, oh, I shouldn't be experiencing this anymore because I've done all this work or whatever. The more you allow yourself to feel it and forgive and acknowledge and accept the more of a giant you really are, because you'll be able to help other people.
Yeah.
By sharing those experiences. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I love this. I love this. I hope you're okay with me ranting a little bit.
Oh, rant away. I love it. I'm having fun.
And then just throw in
So,
throw in your rants too. Like just let's keep going with this, because this is powerful. Part of really loving yourself is loving what is. I think is it Byron Katie that her book is Loving What Is, or who is that?
I'm not sure, but it sounds like I need to read it.
I think it is Byron Katie. And Brene Brown talks about it, and it's, Hugh just had a comment on there of his way of being is, to be authentic, to be himself. And so that the idea that we have these levels of us, there's the higher observer self that oversees everything. It's that consciousness that science can't explain. It's that idea that there's something beyond all of it that is able to still observe. It's the observer self, or the source, or whatever you want to call it. And then you go into the could, or the I just saw Joni's thing, the could versus should. You go into the consciousness, which is kind of the level of perception where you're making sense of the world around you. And like this study on Cambridge University, where you can rearrange the letters and still read a paragraph, even though it's all jumbled, you can still read it because your brain makes sense of it. And then you go into the pre-conscious level, which is going to be before that consciousness. You can pull things in and out of consciousness. And so you can automate them and then pull them back into manual mode and then put them back into automation. And then below that, you have the high school mean girls level, right? The unconscious level that you're just not even aware of, that's still operating, and it's still looking for triggers, but you have no idea it's there. You don't know that it's got an impact. You don't know that it has a say until it comes up. And it comes up under stress. It comes up under anxiety and predictions. It comes up in certain situations. I know people that black out. They're like, I don't have any memories of the experience because I just went straight into this thing that I didn't even know was there. So these levels of consciousness, right? The unconscious, that deepest level that we're talking about here, during development, I can see the pattern that would create that. You have this insecurity, and even to go back to the origins of that insecurity, do you have any sense of where that came from?
And that's hard to say, because I really don't, well, I don't recall anyway, any big trauma. But I do know that, my genes, my genetics, we all have some level of social anxiety.
Thank you.
So I think a lot of it, I know, thanks Mom, thanks Dad.
Not
so I think
I
a
don't
lot
mean that.
of it is, no, I know. A lot of it can be like situational, or when we go through childhood traumas. And a lot of it can just be that innate personality too. You see it more often, I think, when there's trauma, some big thing that happens that maybe you're blocking, or maybe you're not. But that doesn't mean that if nothing happened, that you're not immune to all those feelings.
Yeah,
all those triggers.
We're really dealing with biologically. You could have some things going on that you're not aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a bit more genetic, biological than anything else for me. And of course, different things, happen along the way, right? The course of life. But when it comes from like my childhood, I feel like it was just me, and it was something that I had to work through. And
I love it. It's like somebody came in and said, here's your clay, Charra, here's your clay. This is what you get to work with. Okay. You've got green, red, and blue. Those are your colors. Okay. So as a foundation, here you go. What are you going to create with it? And you're handed this from birth, this genetic background, this clay, so to speak, and you get to mold it. And now, kind of going through, you're not sure what to do with it during development and high school and all these things. You don't have the tools or the means to really do anything with it.
Our brains aren't fully developed yet to handle it.
So what would you say, even now, there are adults that still are facing these same things as adults. They weren't resolved or cleared up as in childhood, so they're facing them now. And so
so
what would you share with them?
I mean, I would say that there's nothing wrong with you, and that it's okay that
Yeah.
you're dealing with this, right? There's nothing wrong with you. The hardest part is
I
to
thought you were going to say you
actually
should give up. Like, thank you for that. No. Yeah.
just no,
Yeah.
but I think the hardest part really, especially when we're older, is to ask for help and to start taking those necessary steps
Yeah.
towards changing your mindset. Because it's so ingrained in us, and the older we get, the harder it is to make those changes. But it can be done.
Yeah.
It absolutely can be done, and it takes work and it takes growing pains. And everything is getting better, and you can see that there's so much good happening in you, but you're like, that happens
just
to
throw
me.
in the towel, like Tony.
You guys know what I mean?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
get growing pains. So it's really, really hard work. And I think that a lot of people will avoid that hard work
Yeah.
because, even though when you're through most of the work or a lot of it,
Yeah.
life is better and you're feeling better. But during that journey, it's bringing up all this, really painful stuff. And
Ryan,
sometimes it's easier just to leave it
yeah.
stuffed.
Yeah.
Just
Ryan,
leave
I'm
it
seeing
there,
your face, man.
Yeah, well, and it you've developed habits over the years and an operating system that's I don't I it's an interesting operating system because it's not like it's just like this is your operating system like 1.0. It doesn't work like that.
And you
It's
can
like
never upgrade, right?
yeah,
Like,
it's
Right.
stacked. It's layered. It's so layered because of you take all of your experiences and that I'm gonna stack it like a sandwich is like your operating system that
Right.
that your mind is going off of.
well,
And
now
that
I'm
could be
hungry.
yeah, me too.
I mean, it's lunchtime here.
Yeah.
But it's just all of those experiences compounded over time, and you would a lot of times you're adopting um a lot of different stories, not just a story. It's pieces of different people. Like if I hang around Nick, you know what's crazy is I start acting like Nick.
I'm sorry,
I
man.
know, it's so
Yeah.
weird.
It
If I start hanging out with other people, almost subconsciously, I start doing things that they do. I've been listening to the book Atomic Habits and going, okay, so if you want to drink more water, for instance, start putting water bottles in strategic places around your house where you'll see the water and naturally you'll trigger, oh, drink
right,
more water.
right.
You'll naturally start drinking more water because it's a product of your environment. It's right there in front of you. That is applied for everything. You just
Yeah,
and now there's stuff that can come in out of left field, that can happen, but that is really what's happening is life is coming at you and you're seeing things, and so that's making up your operating system continually. When you go do the work, you go start peeling back that and going, okay, what are but a lot of times people are looking for the big triggers, like the big events. Those are great, and those are a good place to dig and start and find and uproot and tackle. But I think that building the habits, the new
yes,
habits, are really, really, really important into learning how to love yourself and then also
absolutely.
make those changes. Because if you don't build those habits, what will happen is something down the line will then be that trigger, and it could be something that's super small, but you fall right back into your old
Yeah.
patterns.
And So going off of what you said about habits, I think starting small and one habit at a time is a really good way to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something that you
Fiona.
can accomplish. You
Yeah.
can start off with a couple little check the box healthy things to do that, it's a challenge, but it's not that much. And then as you get confident and you are making these healthy changes, then you can start diving in and doing some bigger changes, right?
The work side of this.
Mm-hmm.
And hang on to your thoughts. I have a tendency to interrupt. So hang on to
you're
if there's
good.
something you want to share. Okay. The idea of the work, right? If you're doing your work, we hear that over and over. I'm doing my work, but they're not doing their work. So they got to do their work so that we can be compatible, blah, blah, blah. We say that, mainly the blah, blah, blah part. So
that's important.
Yes. And when a person is doing their work, essentially what that is creating the space for that emotion to be present. So when it gets triggered in the environment, high school girls, we'll use that as the analogy, and you get in that environment, it comes up. What we do is we don't give grace and space for that. So instead of forgiving it and forgiving ourselves for the judgment of ourselves over that thing, we go into the shaming of ourselves over that even being present. Mm-hmm. And then we numb out, and we numb out through social media. We do it through sex. We do it through alcohol, drugs, work. It doesn't matter. We do something to get our minds off of it. So we get into the distraction, and then it becomes more than a distraction. It's a numbing agent.
Right.
Like you said earlier, distractions can be okay. A glass of Chardonnay can be okay. But when Chardonnay becomes everything and you can't do your work, then it's a challenge.
Right, exactly.
So doing the work, doing the work is essentially is giving grace and space, forgiving the judgments, allowing it to be present, and then creating a new truth, like Ryan mentioned, is creating new pathways. It's not ignoring it. It's not pretending it's not there. That's the challenge we're running into, is how to love yourself isn't putting on a mask and going out in the world and saying, I feel like shit inside, but I'm going to pretend like I don't. Like, that's not loving yourself. Loving yourself is I've got room for all of it. The messy parts and the good parts. Mm-hmm. What do you think as you hear that? I'm going to let you go for a bit.
Ooh. Yeah. The mask, putting on the mask before we go out.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I think that's pretty huge. That's pretty huge. And it's also very exhausting.
Yeah.
And uncomfortable.
Right.
And you get home at the end of the day and then you need those numbing agents.
Yeah.
And if we can learn to just, again, with acceptance, right? Accept who we are, good, bad, ugly, and actually view it as good, or at least as potential.
Right.
It just makes life so much easier. But getting to that point is like an ongoing process. But yeah, that's really interesting, the mask thing. I think that so many people do that. I think my mask finally came off.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
After, or probably towards the end of my first marriage. So I've been married and divorced.
Yeah.
And during my marriage, it was, I felt like it was very emotionally abusive, not physical, but a lot of emotional abuse. And I had to fight for my self-care. Right. So I was making sure that I would go out and do yoga, that I was drinking more green juice, that I was going for walks, because I knew that I would not survive emotionally if I didn't start taking care of myself like that. So then once I was out of that relationship, and of course, this whole process was like, if you've been married and divorced, it hurts. But I grew so much because of it and grew in love with myself. So once I was out of that marriage, now I had all this extra time to continue doing all those things that I had started to do to love myself.
Yeah.
So I went and I got my yoga teacher. I went to yoga teacher training. And then I decided that why should my life just revolve around work? Let's leave the country. And I went to Costa Rica and went on some yoga retreats, in Thailand and Bali, and just doing those big, scary things and doing them by myself, like completely by myself. Though I guess I was never really alone. I was meeting people along the way, but it just got me to a place where I was so much more comfortable in my own skin. And I could go places alone and sit down and not worry that people would think that girl's all by herself. What is she doing? I started to prefer it almost. And because I was just starting to be very comfortable with me.
Yeah.
You know, and it was really, as painful as it was a beautiful process. And then, you know, but just when you think you're done, things come up again. I had mentioned to you, I think before we started, that I'm happily engaged and I have a little toddler. We lived in Las Vegas, and then just before the pandemic hit, after, you know, I had Sophia, our daughter, we decided to move back east to be close to my parents. So that was huge. But having a little girl to take care of, now self-care is more, if I take care of myself and if I love myself and value myself, I can be a better mother. I can be a better example. I'm going to have the fuel and the energy to provide to my family. So, and, you know, and I just went off on
No, I love it.
rabbit
I love
hole
it.
too.
Yeah. Well, I'll bring it in. It
Yeah,
all
bring
ties
it
in.
It does.
It's interesting within relationship when you're going through a divorce and you come out of divorce. It is really heavy. For me, it was a really dark time of my life, but it was that darkness and that pulling back and really reflecting and ruminating on everything that I got a chance to really rebuild myself. And my ex and I have a great relationship. We're friends. We were hanging out, you know, over the weekend with my son at the hospital. It was just really relaxed and comfortable, you know, but we created that. And there's this other side of the coin that says, when I'm alone, I can do all these things and there's no issue and no triggers and no emotional this and no emotional that. And the only place that they come up is when you put yourself back into a relationship and you're like, oh shit, they're still there. Oh man, they're still there because I don't trigger myself. Right. So by myself, I can do things and I'm comfortable and I get all this growth. And then I go into relationship and it's like, oh, I still got work to do.
There's still work. Yeah.
So allowing space for that is when you do get into a relationship, if people choose to do that, then it's going to bring up things that you weren't aware were there. It's that unconscious level that is so deep that the only time it comes up is when you're in an environment that triggers it. And then once it's triggered, then what? This is where there's a lot of opportunity for growth. Then what? Because then you can start blaming them. Well, it's their fault that I'm like this instead of doing the work. You could say it's the environment. Yeah, it's challenging no matter what, because you're bringing up old stuff to work on. And it's manifesting itself so that you can work on it. And the work is simply acceptance. It truly is simply acceptance, because the moment you accept it, it loses all its power. It seems to just dissipate and dissolve. And you might have to do that a few times, but over time it becomes diluted and it doesn't have the impact it used to have. What keeps it powerful is our resistance to it, our idea that it shouldn't be there, that I know better than this. And what do you think around that?
Oh, it just makes so much sense. And, you know, it is simple, the idea of acceptance, but simple and easy are probably two very different things.
Yeah. Create a distinction there.
I think it does sound very simple. Acceptance and accepting things or what you're feeling, it really takes the weight off your shoulders. It's allowed to happen. It's allowed to be here. I accept it. And then you can move past it faster. But it does take repetition.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like it's, you fake it till you make it a little bit with accepting. You're saying out loud, the positive things, and that, I am allowed to feel this way. I accept myself for who I am, or whatever it is that you're saying. And sometimes our brains aren't really buying into it 100% yet. So it takes repetition, and maybe even some different wording to really change that mindset.
At least 60 days of repetition, up to
more
about
than
a
21.
year. Yeah, they say on average to create a new habit is 66 days on average.
So no more 21 days.
No more 21 days. 18 on the low end for it to become habitual, 257 on the high end generally to become habitual. And it's just a nature of the neural structures that you're creating, that when you create repetition, your brain comes in and supports. If you don't repeat it, then it doesn't have anything to support. And so the delusion of the old energy is essentially, when you look at a neuron and it fires all or nothing, and it's used to this path and it just goes. And so if you can get into that space of diluting it and allowing it, it takes that energy and it dissipates it out. It's just like, and then you create your new neural pathway, and now you're redirecting energy into the new behavior. And over time, like you said, persistence, repetition, practice over time is going to create a new neural pathway. So when that fires, you know what to do with it. You've redirected it.
Yeah. I love that you can tie in all the science and the
I do too much
brain.
science.
I love it.
I think people, they love the metaphors too. The giants and the smalls is a metaphor. And the beauty of metaphor is you can read it over and over again. If I go too much into science, then I've lost people that are like, I don't get it. And so metaphor brings the science in. It melds the two worlds.
It melds the two together.
Yeah.
In Atomic Habits, he talked about going to the gym, and in his mind, I think that, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but and I related to this because this is how I feel.
Like Ryan has always said.
Yeah, like I've always said. In my mind, I'm going, I gotta go to the gym. Like, I gotta get up earlier, drive over to it, spend an hour doing whatever people expect me to be doing for an hour in a gym, and then I gotta come back, shower, like all this stuff. And so that the thought of all of that is like, meh, I'm good, But what he did is he went and he just said, okay, I'm just show up for 2 minutes. And so he would do that over and over and over and over, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. And then after a while, he's like, freaking A, I'm here 2 minutes, seems like a waste. So, but he had built the habit. And so 2 minutes didn't seem like that big of a deal to show up to the gym for 2 minutes.
Right.
And then, and so you can maybe apply that to whatever you feel is hard, or, or the mind it just seems like such a big deal. Well, change that and do something instead of, journaling for an hour, do
5
it for
minutes,
a minute,
2 minutes.
or just write down a word,
Yep.
you get the same pattern effect.
Open the journal.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Do something like that, right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
not so overwhelming until you can build the capacity to handle more and more and more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that. And I like to tell the people that I'm working with the same thing, really. And exercise is a great example. It's really overwhelming to think about the whole process of going to the gym or going for a run or whatever it is, because, I've got to do it for 30 minutes and it's going to be so hard. And I don't have time because I've spent, 20 minutes, trying to put it off. And now I've used. So why not just put on your shoes and go outside? And that's your goal.
Yeah.
Do that 3 days a week or every day. Just put on your shoes and go outside and then see what happens. And then we can adjust as you succeed. Make it easy.
Easier, right? I think of the prediction. So what we're doing essentially is predicting out. And then if we really don't want to do something, we predict out how complicated it's going to be. And then we embellish it by making it even more complicated. It's like this slippery slope. And then it was this, and then it became that. And then next thing you know, it's a nuclear war, and it's like all this stuff. You're like, off of going to the gym? Like, how did you come up with that?
We spiral.
Yeah. So giving yourself that room to make your predictions, but simplify your prediction, really narrow it down to the most simple task, because that's what you're doing anyway. And then we bring in our remembered presence into that prediction, and then we predict from there. Oh, I remember this last time I did that and it was really hard. And then we embellish that. Instead of doing that, just come into the present of I am where I am. This is the acceptance thing. I am where I am. It is what it is. And from here, the most simple and I guess sensible step, the one that makes the most sense, is to just go for 2 minutes. Yeah. I can do that.
Yeah.
You know, like pattern changing is an interesting thing to me now. And like it's something that I hadn't really thought of or put a whole lot of stock into before listening to Atomic Habits or hanging out with Nick. But there's this, like, if you're going to go to lunch and you want to go to lunch with a friend and you say, hey, I'm going to go to lunch on Friday at this place at this time with this person, generally speaking, that ends up happening. So you start saying, I'm going to do this at this time, and those things start happening. So you can do stuff like that by saying, after I wake up at 6:30, I'm going to have my coffee. I'm going to have my morning drink or whatever, or relax for just a second. Then I'm going to go get on the treadmill for 5 minutes or whatever it is for you. And the chances of that happening, once you speak it and say it, and this is what I'm going to do at this time, go up dramatically. Like, and I use that for dramatic effect too. Dramatically.
And if you say it out loud to another person, then it will go up even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really are designed around the trigger, the thought,
patterning.
Yeah. In my book, The Art of Accomplishment, my wife at the time, she touched her face and she's like, I should wash my face. And then she said, I'm going to wash my face. And then she was washing her face. And then she said, I washed my face. It's simply that. It's that pattern of you get triggered and it creates that thing in you that says, I could do something. And then you decide to do it. And then you're doing it. And then you did it. It's really that easy. It's not complicated.
And this is a great
recomplicate it
here too.
Yeah.
Is changing the pleasure to pain to pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you want pain, you can change it to pain, but pain to pleasure.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I like that these comments are amazing. Like, Charra, as you look at it now, we tie it back in. So you have this developmental thing that comes through and says, I am this. And then you have an awakening moment that says there's a chance to change it, the divorce. And then you go through and you get into this routine of creating a change within yourself. And then you get back into another relationship, right?
Yeah.
And it brings its own set of triggers. That's what they do. And there's a chance to grow even more.
Yes.
And looking at your theme of how to create self-love and acceptance within the context of that, what came next for you? So you have this awakening, you have these triggers, you have this acceptance. What became your philosophy for life, I guess, is what I would ask.
My philosophy for life. I mean, I just feel like the more we're able to love ourselves and to put ourselves first within reason, right? Yeah. The better we're going to be at serving others, right? Because if we are our best selves, and so I'm focusing on getting more physical activity, meditation, sleeping well at night, taking breaks, during my work day, getting out on my own when I feel like I need to be rejuvenated. I come back from these things and I'm excited and relaxed and happy, and that spreads to my family and it spreads to my clients, and it just helps you serve others better when you're serving and loving yourself first. It's not selfish. Or maybe I should say that being selfish is a very good thing when it has the purpose of making you better so that you can help others.
I'm thinking of the word love, and I think of what you're describing here. And I think of the word as more of an experience than a word. It's something that you have this acceptance for life. You have this cherishing of moments. You have this increase of acceptance around other people. You have compassion. Like, love isn't just one thing. It's an experience of all these different things that come together. It's more of a feeling. And so if we were to really, if we were to narrow it down, all of these things, like your self-love is that feeling of I'm okay. And I think of Stuart Smalley on Saturday Night Live. I'm good enough, and doggone it, people like me. But it's a feeling that you have inside of compassion and empathy and acceptance and cherishing. And you also do that for other people when you're feeling that inside. If you're coming at the mask of love, buried by this ideal of insecurity, then what really shows up is the insecurity masked as love. You can only do that so long before it comes apart.
It comes apart, and then the way that you're judging and being critical of yourself tends to be the way you are acting towards other people.
Yeah.
As you start to get tired and burn out and get fatigued from having that mask on and putting everyone else first, then it comes across more harmful than helpful. Someone had mentioned in the comments, and I don't know exactly how they worded it, but how can you love others well if you don't love yourself well? You tend to treat others and serve others, or allow yourself to be treated by others the way that you would treat yourself. I think that when you have more self-love, you're probably more likely to be in healthier relationships, to be surrounded by positive, loving people. Yeah. Because you love yourself. You're not even going to attract as much those other, toxic in relationships.
So I would even venture to say that love isn't something you go get.
Oh, it starts all inside.
You already are, and it gets masked by anger, by frustration, by sadness. So all these things that shroud it and cloud it are all that is occurring. So when you can clear those, when you create acceptance for the clouds and the rainy days of your life, so to speak,
find joy in it.
Yeah, then you know that eventually those things pass and the love shines through again. It's not like you've got to go out and create the sun so that you can feel the sun on your face when the cloudy days are there. You don't have to go create the sun. It's already there. It's just masked by a cloud. So when the clouds move, the sun already it never stops shining. Yeah. So within each of us, the love is really an unmasking and an acceptance of what's already in there. We all have it. Yes. And that giantness really is just unmasking that.
We are all giants. It's there. It's
already.
Taking the mask off. And we're all at different stages in that process. Yep. I like what you said about we're not going to create the sun. We're going to have cloudy days and rain. And a lot of that, if we remind ourselves that it is temporary, it's a lot easier to get through that hard time.
Yeah.
This is temporary. Even when I just have anxiety for no reason, I don't know if anyone else experiences that, nothing's happening and I am anxious
you're the only
and I
one
don't
in the
feel
world.
good. Oh, and then I shouldn't be feeling like this because
Right.
and I go down that rabbit hole because even though we're talking about self-love, it still happens.
Yeah.
This will pass. These feelings, they're not permanent. They'll pass and it's okay.
Yeah.
I had a thought as you guys were talking.
It'll pass.
Is it all right if I share and maybe you
Absolutely.
guys can help me too?
Yeah,
I was sitting here.
No. Brian, no
No help,
sharing.
zero help. And maybe there's people at home that feel this way. Sometimes I do. Like, it's not all the time, but sometimes I do. Like, if only I had, or when I have this much X amount, it doesn't matter because it's probably different for for everyone. But if only I had this much self-love, or if only I had this much of this or that, then I would be able to do these things or help other people or serve or love or whatever. I think that and you guys are spot on with when you have the self-love and your cup is full, you can serve for the highest capacity. But two, if you feel like your cup is low, you can this is just in my mind, so and you guys can clean it up. Nick, you're really good at cleaning up my thoughts, so
Cleaning up Ryan's
you're low, but like when I feel low, I still feel like I can be in service and giving and certain things. It's just not the capacity as when I stop, recharge, refresh.
Right.
And so there's also some things that can be learned in that for me and for others. So I take all the small parts, all the smallness, and that's my experiences that then helps me to be giant. And also share those with others that, hey, look, there's some really crappy days. There's crappy moments.
Yeah.
I don't think you're ever just woo, like riding, like just high on life all the time. I don't know that that's possible. And so while I'm in the midst of all the crap, I can use those experiences to help others by making the choice to love myself and be love, be service.
Yes.
But I also have to find the balance of, okay, I need Ryan time. I need certain things. And realizing those things is part of that journey to be able to fully help others at a higher capacity as well. Does any of that make sense? Anybody?
It does. And I feel like as giants, even though we know all this stuff, as people start to depend on us more and more, it's hard. Even though we're talking about self-care and I guess boundaries, it's harder to put that up and take time away because you don't want to let other people down.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, we can be that example, right? Okay, I know that we had planned to do this at this time. I need Charra time right now. And then we'll talk again on such and such a date when I've rested and you're rejuvenated, and then I'll have more energy to give you and be present for you.
Yeah.
And then, people will see that and hopefully they'll understand and see that they can do that for themselves too.
Yeah.
There has to be boundaries. There has to be time to rest and take care of yourself.
Boundaries are simply
they're so hard.
expressing they're simply expressing your truths, your needs. That's it. I hear Ryan, you talk about people, when I get this, then I'll be happy or whatever. Or when I get here, I'll be happy. Or I want to constantly feel happy. And what comes to mind is I was watching a documentary with my son around heroin and meth, and they release all of the dopamine at once. And then people chase that dragon. Meth is the worst because it releases all that dopamine at once. And then they're chasing the dragon because it was so intense that they want to feel that again and again. And when you force your body to release that dopamine consistently and constantly over time, the body falls apart and starts to die. And some of those people do die from meth overdose or heroin overdose because they just want to feel that constantly. They don't want to feel the sadness of the world. They want to feel that dopamine high. So the idea of constantly feeling happy, it's not designed to be that way. It's designed so that you'll pursue it. They go back to the idea if a man killed an elephant and he ate and he was satisfied for the rest of his life off of one elephant, he would never hunt again. And then he would die because he wouldn't have food, because he'd be like permanently happy. So it's meant to be fleeting so that you'll get into the pursuit of it. That's why they say the pursuit of happiness. And it all comes from whatever you choose as meaningful. Like you said, it's 24 hours. It's whatever experience you want to have. So whatever gives you purpose or meaning, go for that. And then just know that it's not meant to be permanent. We want to be permanently happy. Well, that's a delusion. Your body's not designed for that.
I never thought of it that way. Our bodies aren't designed for it.
They're designed to accommodate this world, which includes some of the negative. And, we have anxiety for a reason. We have fear for a reason. It's meant to support us. Depression has a reason. It's meant to get us to pull energy back from things that don't work. It's very useful. But we want this idea of, well, I want to numb out and feel happy. So we get synthetic happiness in some form, pleasure in some form, and we manipulate it in such a way that that's all we feel, but then we're not feeling the reality as it is where we do the objective work. And so I think it's balancing and understanding that it's meant to be fleeting. Now, satisfaction is a different thing. Being satisfied with life, enjoying life, that's different. You can enjoy life and be through some really heavy emotions and be okay with it. It really comes back to acceptance.
Yeah.
It really does. It's like, I'm okay with it being what it is, however it is. And when I can do better, I'm going to do better. But it's not like this requirement. There's no like have to.
Right. We get to instead of have to. And I like that you said that all the emotions, or like anxiety and depression and all of that has its purpose.
Yeah.
Like I never thought of it like that, but it makes so much sense. And if we can, along with acceptance, know that there is some purpose to our pain.
Yeah.
And we're going to get through it and it's going to be okay. We can learn and we can grow. I think that makes the whole journey more meaningful.
Well, even high school mean girls can have purpose. There's an emotion there, an unmet need that comes up. And instead of numbing it, just being with it, like putting your arms around it, embracing it, just loving what is, going back to that idea of it's okay that I'm here, because what spins us up is the idea that we shouldn't be where we are. You are. It doesn't change. Your shaming and shoulding all over yourself doesn't change the fact that you are where you are.
Somebody, who said it? Somebody said, stop shoulding yourself.
Yeah.
Recently. And I loved it. It's not my saying. I don't remember where I got it, but
yeah. We just say, we quote the person and then we paraphrase the person. And then Ryan came up with, like I've always said, as though it's our own quote.
Right.
So, yeah, just claim it. Yeah.
Should yourself.
If you were to go back in time, let's say that if you could go back and talk to yourself before all of this, before where you are today, and give yourself some wisdom that you could carry with you as you traveled, what would you share?
So what would I tell myself? What wisdom would I give myself? That it would all be okay, and that the person that I would grow into as a result of this, or as, part of the process, would be beautiful and able to help other people. This is that there's purpose to what is happening, and it will be okay. Like just keep going. Just keep going.
I love it. Ryan, did you have some other thoughts?
Yeah, I think as we go through this journey we call life,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's going to look different for every single person. I don't know that there is a manual for the right way. These are just ways that we've found that can help us, and so in hopes that it might help you some small way, we share. That's where that's why we do what we do. If you need more help, if you need, um, like if there's some mental health issues, then go talk to somebody that's certified and licensed to be able to help you through those things. These are
Absolutely.
just tips and suggestions and that have helped us through what we're going through. I'm not telling you this is how you have to do it. This is things that have helped us.
Mm-hmm.
So as you hear these, though, go start looking at, like, what's going on in your life, and if it serves, then implement it. If it's not serving you, throw it out. It's okay. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but how I'm experiencing you, Charra, is love, is service, is
Thank you.
being, because you're doing. And
Thank
so
you.
thank you for doing those things, because you've been through all of the experiences, good, bad, hard, all the things that we label them,
Hmm.
um, to make you the sum of who you are right now.
Hmm.
And that is giant. That is a giant, and that is giant things and little steps that have made you who you are. So thank you for being on and sharing with others.
Aw. And thank you. And you're welcome. Right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Uh,
Shar, is there anything else that you wanted to share that maybe we didn't get to that
um,
you feel would be beneficial?
well, I just came up with an idea for a new program, a new challenge that I am launching later in the month. It's a self-care challenge. So it's going to be limited in the amount of people that will be able to be part of this group, but I think it's something that I'll be doing ongoing, like probably once a month or so. And basically, um, we'll be posting on social media something that we're doing to care for ourselves and to love ourselves each day. And then I'll be hopping on with some live teachings a few times during the week to just to help with motivation, to help explain why self-care is so important. Um, I'll be reaching out and offering some coaching as part of it.
Yeah.
But it's a free program. So if you find me on Facebook, send me a friend request, send me a message if you're interested in a self-care challenge. I would love to help you with that.
That's a
So
huge gift,
thank
for
you.
those that are watching, especially where you're waiving any fees for people to experience this. I mean, that's a big deal. So I see time as our most valuable resource.
Mm.
Attention is what we give to that time. Um, but your attention is going to go into these people, and your time, you're giving up of your time to do this.
Mhm.
So whenever I hear somebody say they've got a free program, it's not free. Let's be clear. It's going to cost you your time and attention, and it will be worth every penny.
Mm.
And for those that are going to do this, really commit to this. For Charra, because she is committing to you, don't just do
Mm.
this flippantly, like, I'll see how it goes. That's interested. If you're interested, that's different from being committed. Being committed, it means you're going to do it. And so that's my
Yes.
challenge for anybody watching this is a big thing that you're offering. And so don't show up interested, like this is a curious thing. Really show up
Mhm.
in the space of, what can I gain from this? How can I grow from this? Really love what you're putting together, because you're putting a lot
Mhm.
into this. That's a lot.
I like that. So I'll rephrase.
Yeah.
If you are committed to putting yourself first
Yeah.
and working on your self care, reach out to me.
Yeah. Beautiful. I like that. See that. That's it.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. And you'll know the commitment by the activity. The activity is truly the payment.
Absolutely.
So for those that are watching, just truly grateful for you, Charra, for what you've shared today, the perspectives and the journey that you've gone through from, coming into insecurity and not knowing why, recognizing that there may be something genetic going on, learning to work with that, having an awakening in your life that says there's got to be something else that we do, kind of like the story. I've got to do something different because this isn't working. And then pulling back all your energy and resources and really redefining and recreating yourself and coming back out and serving. These are all part of the giant's journey, is coming back and now serving people like you are. And it's a powerful journey. And it's a model for everybody that's watching, because self-care, self-love is simply that deep level acceptance that I'm actually pretty good where I'm at, So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See? This has been wonderful.
What was it?
Easiler.
Easiler?
That was
easiler than you thought.
That was way easiler than I thought.
And before we started, we mentioned, do we have tissues just in case? And I was like, and I feel a little,
do you?
a little wet in the eyes.
Yeah, good.
From what you just said. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you do, because that's the impact that you're having in the world. And I had somebody share with me the other day, Luisa Milano. She shared that you will never see your face the way you see somebody else's face. The only thing that you'll have from them is a reflection, and the only thing you'll ever see is a reflection of yourself. You'll never see your face the way others do, or that you see others' faces. And so the only thing you can rely on is their reflection of you and their words, and their experience of you becomes that reflection. So you want to know how people experience you or how you're showing up in the world. Look at what people are saying and really receive it, because it's not enough to just have them say it and then not receive it. It's like, no, that's not me. We reject it. Like, Charra, truthfully, when that hits home, that is a reflection back of how I experience you, how Ryan experiences you. When your clients work with you, that's how they experience you. Really take that in as that's who I am being.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And that's a lot of work right there, is to really feel the positive things that people say about you,
That can be.
I'm going to go read it all.
Yeah, perfect. Is there anything else before we wrap up here?
I think this has been wonderful.
Yeah.
This has been a great experience. So thank you. Thank you
You're
both
welcome.
so much. And thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah, for everybody watching.
It's been great.
Make sure you subscribe. There's so many shows popping up on our network. I can't even keep up anymore. There's so many. And it's all valuable like this. So if you're not following on YouTube, you'll want to go subscribe, just because there's so much fresh, valuable content that is current, up to date, based on current research. I mean, we're going from stories to you talk about the ethereal, spiritual, scientific. We've got it all there. So make sure that you're following on YouTube and go take advantage of what Charra is offering. There's the post again. So go follow her, charra.post on Facebook, and message her about this program. So go make it a giant day. Remember, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're right on time. You're doing exactly what you should be doing. And we will see you in the next video.
Love you too.
Thank you.